there's another insane story we wanted to tell you about. This really, really pissed me off yesterday. Let's put this Washington Post tear sheet up on the screen. So this mom, her name is Rebecca Furlet, in Chicago. She has joint custody, or had joint custody, of her 11-year-old son with her ex-husband. And she joined this Zoom call, which was just supposed to be about like child support and normal sort of issues that you have between former spouses and managing their arrangement with their children. The judge starts off the proceeding by asking her whether or not she's vaccinated. She responded she wasn't, explaining she's had adverse reactions to vaccines in the past and that a doctor had advised her against getting inoculated against the coronavirus, saying it poses a risk. Is that true or not? Who knows? The judge responds by stripping her of all her custody rights. Takes her son. I mean, this is bananas. Pretending that this is in the interest of the child, to take the child away from their mother, this is completely bananas. And if there are any other extenuating circumstances or something, listen, I leave it open that that is the case. But in terms of what the news is reporting, the Chicago Sun-Times is the first with the report, and now the Washington Post as well, this was really the only issue. Okay, he starts the hearing by saying, hey, are you vaccinated? She says no, and he takes her kid.
Yeah.
This is so insane and so outrageous, and gets to the fact that, you know, COVID is one factor and kid safety around the coronavirus is one factor to be weighed in, but there are a lot of things that go into the well-being of a child besides their level of risk to this virus. So if this starts a trend, and the number of people I saw celebrating this online, like this was a good thing, this is psychotic. These Occupy Democrats people sent out this tweet saying, breaking, a judge revokes a Chicago mom's custody of her 11-year-old son after she admits she's unvaccinated. The dad is vaccinated and will retain custody until she is. Retweet if you support the judge's decision to put the child's safety before her mom's dangerous ignorance. This had thousands and thousands of retweets of people who consider themselves to be liberal or progressive agreeing that this kid should be taken away from the mom for no other reason than her vaccination status. And again, if you're worried about the kid's well-being, you know what's good for kids? Being around their parents, being with mom, that's something that's good for kids.
Yeah, and also, look, I mean, in terms of children, we've covered this ad nauseum in terms of the Delta variant poses, and this is according to the American Pediatrics Association, who itself, in my view, has lost the plot and is calling for universal masking amongst children, is that Delta is in no way more more deadly or dangerous to children than the original COVID. And so we already know that children, by and large, are not at risk of serious illness or death from this disease. That's regardless of infection. And so that is that's what we have to consider in terms of why he is stripping this woman of her custody. And actually, reading further in the report is even more dystopian, Krystal. The father did not bring this issue before the court.
Right.
The father of this child was not like, she's not vaccinated, you need to give me this child. The judge unilaterally decided that he, as a condition of custody, was gonna make this decision on behalf of the state to strip this woman of her custody rights over her own kid. And actually, I didn't know this, so thank you, for the reporting here, which is that there are now similar things going on in the US court system. So here's what we have in terms of the roundup. 2 judges in Ohio have ordered that some people receive the vaccine as a condition of their probation. Similarly, 2 Georgia judges are reducing sentences for offenders who get the vaccine. I guess that's, one way to handle it. In New York, judges in the Bronx and Manhattan have actually ordered defendants to get a vaccine as part of their rehabilitation and as part of a condition for seeking bail, respectively. So the judge ruling in this case in Chicago is already kind of well-trodden ground in terms of the precedents being set that judges can say whether you're getting a vaccine or not. And this is where I just start to lose it. Because, look, both of us are vaccinated. We did a whole diatribe yesterday about why you should get vaccinated, about why even if you are a young person, that overall in the societal aggregate, it will decrease your chance of getting COVID. And yes, I know, I did get COVID. breakthrough COVID, and all of that.
But we should say, I was around you a lot, and I did not get COVID.
That's correct.
Nobody in my family did. The vaccine worked, guys.
There you go. So, who knows if you would have gotten it or not. So on the societal-wide level, it reduces transmission, which makes it so that people who are old and elderly, who are maybe not be vaccinated, they themselves could be, very, very, very much facing death or hospitalization. And we also know that in elderly folks especially, it reduces hospitalization and death to almost zero. That is exactly what we want. We want to try and turn this thing into both something that's less transmissible, and if you do get it, like for me, you're not going to feel good for a very few days, but here I am, and I'm feeling fine. That is the most important thing that we try to do. But we cannot reduce this to state mandates, especially through the court system, whenever it comes and then interacts with the criminal justice system. That's even worse.
Well, and this isn't just messing with, look, it's one level, which I also don't support, when you're making a condition of probation, you're making a condition of bail and these sorts. That's just impacting you.
Exactly.
What gets me here is that the person who is harmed the most in all of this is her kid.
It's the baby.
I mean, this is heartbreaking. She talks about how, she's sending him care packages. He's been crying. Of course, he's upset. He's upset. And this was supposed to just be a normal sort of hearing that a lot of people who are divorced have been through. When you have kids, and there's a question over child support. It was just supposed to be about that. And then out of the gates, he hits her with, "Are you vaccinated?" and takes away the kid. This is so insane. And the reason we want to call attention to it is because this is the first instance we know of where this has occurred. But given the level of support that this found in some corners of the internet, at least, and among, liberal brainworms types, it would not be shocking to see this start to be a pattern across the country. And we cannot, that's a horrific direction to go in. It fits in with, the same attitude of you shouldn't get health care. If you're unvaccinated, you should be denied health care if you're unvaccinated. This is bananas, it's psychopathic, and you're not only harming the people themselves who are not vaccinated, you're also harming the people around them, in this instance specifically, their children. It also makes me think of, the conversation around schooling and shutting down schools and putting restrictions in place, et cetera. And especially last year, the only factor that was weighed in terms of children's well-being was risk of coronavirus, right? There was no sort of weight given to the burden and the challenges for kids who, don't have that support at home. Their parents are busy working. They may not have internet access. And you had millions of kids who just literally dropped out of school. And I'm not talking about high school kids. I'm talking about kindergartners who never showed up for kindergarten that were supposed to be there. What was the cost of that? There was no emphasis on the cost of mental health for kids who, need that social structure where maybe school is like the most stable thing in their lives, where
School
this is where they can go.
For a lot of children.
Yeah, school, where you can go and know that you're going to get 2 meals, where you're going to have this structure, where you have people who are keeping an eye on you, making sure that things are going okay for you in your life. Like all of that safety net and support that we've built up as a society, which is wildly imperfect, but it is better than nothing. That was just taken away without a lot of analysis of what the costs of that were going to be. And I've said this before, look, in the beginning, when we didn't know how dangerous this was for kids, it was understandable. It was really understandable. As a parent, it was this decision that I wanted my public school system to make. I was ready to pull my kids out. I actually pulled my kids out of public school the day before they decided to close the schools because we just didn't know at that point. Now we know. Thank God the risk to children is very, very low, especially kids who don't have any other comorbidities, don't have immune systems that are compromised. The risk is extraordinarily low. That is great news. That needs to be taken into account. And these other costs and factors need to also be weighed. So in this one instance of the kid being taken from the mom over the vaccination status, I see that same sort of thinking where there's this assumption that the only thing that goes into a child's well-being is whether or not they have any coronavirus exposure whatsoever. And that's just an insane way to look at things.
I completely agree. Look, I mean, flu is actually, dangerous. So is chicken pox.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these stuff. Actually, a kid in my class when I was like 5 years old died from chicken pox, it was horrible. I still remember him.
Jesus,
all of
that's
it.
awful.
There was some other, usual, there was some other stuff going on. Had pneumonia at the same time, healthcare system, that's a whole
Are you gonna take kids away from their parents because mom doesn't get the flu shot?
Yeah.
I mean, really?
That's actually, in terms of the deadliness,
it's
in terms of transmission and more, that same argument could be made around that. And as a society, I think we should recognize that is we should completely reject that thinking. And just to give you an idea, even Australia is beginning to back off a little bit in terms of their zero COVID policy. Let's put this up there on the screen. Somebody's got to come to their senses. They say they're going to end their COVID zero policy. Quote, "It's not a sustainable way to live." Heard from some angry Australians last time who supported their lockdown. Look, in one way, I do get it. Only 27% of Australians have been fully vaccinated. And, the population there just seems a lot more compliant and willing to live with these restrictions. That being said, I think that this pushed a lot of people over the edge and they said, no, that's not it. Now, in terms of whether the actual restrictions and all that will go down, I do think it is interesting, though, that they have to come out and say, okay, fine, guys, we're not going to try and do zero COVID. And that's how it should be. And just to stick with this, I saw one of the most insane things yesterday from a teachers union representative. Let's put this up there. The UTLA president, Cecilia Mayart Cruz, she was saying that learning loss is a myth. Quote, "It's okay our babies may not have learned all their times tables. They know the difference between a riot and a protest, and they know the words insurrection and coup." Now look, even if you agree with this lady's politics, and if you are a supporter of unions, which I am a supporter of unions, you cannot look at this and say it is okay for children not to know their multiplications timetables. We need to stop, as you said, Krystal, minimizing what it really means to have a loss of institutionalized schooling for well over a year.
Yeah.
This is insanity. And, look, and I'm not trying to go after the teachers unions or whatever here, although I think some of them have been very bad actors. More what I'm saying is that this kind of thinking is pervading a lot of people in elite circles who have immense responsibility to actually make sure that children are okay. More and more, I'm convinced we're creating some sort of lost generation where it's like, what is going to happen? I was reading yesterday, Amherst, which requires vaccination, still has their dining hall closed with total mask mandates. I'm like, this is crazy. And you can shout at me all you want. Oh, communal dining is so important. Actually, yeah, I think so. In terms of social development and more, I have no idea what the societal externalities are going to be years from now because of what we did. But I know that nothing comes for free, that there's always a cost when it comes to these things.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, I have seen a number of takes that were like, well, actually, school's not that important. It's like wait,
no,
what?
Yeah, it is, though.
And listen, there is a bigger conversation to be had in this country about schooling, about the way we go about it, about whether kids are really getting what they need, especially in the modern economy, to prepare them for success, or whether they're just being, created like a sheep mentality created in our children. And I am up for that whole conversation. But just to casually be like, actually, school, nah, we don't really need it, that's pretty radical. It's a pretty radical place to stand.
We need school. Now you're one of those anarcho-libertarians who's going to do what is that thing called? Unschooling, where you don't actually teach your kids and whatever.
You just let them live. Anyway, we'll have that conversation another day because I may have some relatively
some hot takes
on that, but we won't get into that right now. The bottom line is, listen, the way our society is set up, is school in some instances babysitting for people? Do they have their lives structured around being able to send their kids? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Kids being at school allow parents to live their lives, allow them to work, allow them to provide for the family so that when the kids are at home, they can be with them and have time and resources to be able to spend with them and nourish them and help them grow. That is the way our society is structured. Also, that stability that is provided in that routine of going there every day, the social development, being with your friends, all of these things, even if you think that the education part of it is not that important, which I would definitely dispute, all of those things are really, really important, especially for kids who come from backgrounds that are a bit more challenged. So anyway, going forward, as I am praying that my own school district stays open in spite of the fact that they've already had a few coronavirus cases crop up, I hope that we will continue to weigh the cost of closing these schools down as much as we weighed, the risks of infection from coronavirus, because some of this calculus has been completely insane. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.